Welcome back to another round of vintage action. I'm really excited to see what's in store. I'm joined by Andres Peterson, a vintage master, and he will be walking us through all the plays, all the interactions, and in general, the vintage context that's ahead of us. And this round, we will be watching Stefan Schutz again on his Lurus Control against Elliot, who's a well-known streamer. We also saw him yesterday crash Legacy, and he is on Bazaar Vine. So, could you walk us through the key cards in this matchup? So, Bazaar of Baghdad, how important is this card, and why should you mulligan down to one for it?
Exactly. I was about to say that. You can't keep a hand without that card out of this deck. So this card does a lot for the Hollowine deck. So as we see here, Elliot gets to put a Vengevine in the bin and cast 2 Root Wallets for Madness and get back the Vengevine while drawing 2 cards. So yeah, that card is just absurdly strong, and it will require a Wasteland from Stefan momentarily, or it's going to be very bad.
So from Stefan's point of view, if he knows he's playing against Hollowine, and he will know that for game 2 and 3, does he have to mull down to 1 for a Wasteland?
I wouldn't go that far. I would need to research his graveyard hate a little bit. I think he has some needles and a Tabernacle and stuff like that. So he has a lot of like important cards. But you will mulligan a hand that is like, let's say, Ursa Saga, Ancestral Recall, and a couple of lands. Like you actually need something to interact with the Bazaar deck. So you will mulligan otherwise good hands when playing against the deck.
Yeah, it attacks from a completely different angle. It comes down to what we've talked about, which is, yes, you can gear towards the grindy matchups, right? With Lurus, for example. But in this matchup, it won't really matter. Their confidence, can stay in the board for now.
Yeah, it's definitely another approach. And Elliot was fortunate enough to have the second copy of Bazaar, but he didn't activate it, which can tell you a few things. Either he really respects Bowmasters, or he has like a handful of disruption, like forces and other blue cards, so he doesn't want to reduce his hand size here. But let's see what's the case.
Yeah, I can tell you that Elliot plays not only 4 Force of Negation and 4 Force of Will, he also plays 4 Mindwreck Trap and 4 Force of Vigor. So this deck is stacked with 3 interaction spells.
Definitely. And here we see a play that's somewhat normal out of the Hollowine deck, where you force a will because you just want to slow your opponent down so you can actually get to activate your Bazaar freely and not worry about the blue cards in hand. So Brainstorm is not something you would always counter, but here it's more viable, I would say.
Okay, so we see Force of Will on the stack, response by Stefan with Flusterstorm on the Force of Will. Boop.
That's definitely a good interaction for Stefan here, because that Flusterstorm can be very situational. So if you can trade basically a Flusterstorm for the rest of your opponent's hand, you'll take that any day of the week.
Okay, Mindbreak Trap in hand, I think. And so Brainstorm resolves.
I'm interested if Stefan picks up on the fact that he right now has played Brainstorm and Flusterstorm and Mindbreak Trap, if that's on his radar. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I think he passes back, so not walking into that end step activation of Bazaar, I think. Yeah.
Sometimes there's tough decisions to make with the Hollowine deck, because if you activate now and you hit something like Root Wallace or Squee or Master of Death, then it's great, right? But if you have to discard, let's say, real cards, then it can be problematic.
Yeah, we can see Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, and we decide to discard Serum Powder, Force of Vigor, and is that Squee?
That is Squee, yeah. So Squee will come back on his upkeep. So you have access to 8 Squees these days. You have Master of Death, the blue-black version of Squee, and then Squee. So those in combination with Bazaar can just be a very, very strong draw engine and set up a wall of counterspells for the mid game.
Okay, we draw Hollow one, Serum Powder, Root Wallow in hand, Squee ready to get discarded. Up.
It looks
3 cards.
Yep. It looks like fairly obvious discards here. Serum Powder does nothing. Squee comes back, and Root Wallow enters the battlefield. And Elliot gets to keep Force plus blue card, alongside Noxious Revival, which is a cool card that can sometimes time walk your opponent.
Yeah, and in this deck, you can't even actually physically pump your Root Wallers, right? You don't have access to that mana. So they're actually
correct.
just free 1/1s that enable the tricks.
The 1/1s that enable Vengefront out of the graveyard, yeah. There are some versions of the deck that will run Gaia's Cradle, but I think this is a manaless version, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult to come back for Stefan. So the only way to combat it is to have your unfair angle, right? Because you're not going to contain this battlefield.
Definitely. So the way for Stefan to win this game is basically setting up infinite turns via Time Vault and Manifold Key. Just playing like a Bowmaster and a Fatal Push is just not going to get the job done in a game like this.
Is there a world where infinite turns actually don't get the job done because your deck cannot contain what's already happened?
Yeah, it is possible. Not for this matchup, but you will have situations like, for instance, your opponent played the One Ring and has protection. Then at some point you have to pass the turn back, and maybe that results in something bad. And also some like scenarios where you have the One Ring and you end up losing, or a card like Mana Crypt. But those are pretty rare. Infinite turns is a pretty safe bet these days.
Yeah, so Stefan can assemble this combo of Manifold Key and Time Vault, but other than that, it's pretty difficult. Would you treat Time Twister as a hate card?
That's actually a good question. I think it is for like normal Dredge. Let's say Dredge activates Bazaar, puts a few Dredgers in the yard, then
Passes
them having
back.
a big graveyard. Yeah, exactly. Then you can say that, but not in a matchup like this, because the fresh grip of 7 will just be great news, basically.
Okay, so players going to sideboarding Elliot. We can already see Caracas, Surgicals, Furies, or Black Ley Lines. And to be more specific, we've got 4 Ley Line, 4 Surgical, that's 8 Graveyard Disruption cards, 3 Fury, and a single copy of Ghost Quarter, Caracas, Petrified Field, and Pyrokinesis. So how do you approach this as the Halloween deck?
Yeah, so I'm actually interested to see if Iliad believes that the Fury gonna like do great work. It looks like, by the looks of it, it looks like it. So he likes the Furies. I think there's a chance he back on some stuff like Mindbreak Trap in the matchup, but he needs the Noxious Revival in his deck to just fight against Wasteland. That's that card's like main use, is to your opponent Wastelands your Bazaar, then you have like more copies. So he's going to keep those. Yeah, it's actually maybe on the draw he doesn't like the Chalice of the Void. That would be very understandable. That's basically on the play card, I would say. But yeah,
By
it's
the same
interesting that he brings in the
token,
Fury.
by the same token, would you side in Petrified Field to rebuy your Bazaar?
Yeah, so that card you put that in your sideboard if you want like some more extra copies of Bazaar, basically in the face of Wasteland. So yeah, I would say if you decide to register that card, you bring it in against the deck with 4 Wasteland.
Yeah, and it does seem like it. You've seen Lurus. Do you want to go Leyline of the Void, or is that a bit too cheeky? Because Lurus doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah, I would say when I'm the Bazaar deck, I aim to finish the game before Lurus becomes a big factor. So I don't want to dilute my own opening hands with cards like Leyline. I want like the highest percentage possible of doing something similar to what happened in game 1.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So let me take a look at the Stefan sideboard, and we see Soul Guide Lantern. That surely comes in. The Tabernacle, Horke's Recall, Gravedigger's Cage, Double Push, Double Snuff Out, Double Soul Rent, Mindbreak Trap, and Pithing Needle. So you've already mentioned Pithing Needle, right?
Yep, I like Pithing Needle, shuts down Bazaar of Baghdad, and if that is already taken care of, you can name Opposing Wasteland if you want to protect your own saga. Yeah, that card is just great. Gravedigger's Cage makes it so that Vengevine can't come back from the graveyard, so obviously we want that as well. The Tabernacle as well, so you're playing against a deck with no mana, so if a Tabernacle has like good timing, that's just a 0-mana Wrath of God. But I'm curious to see if Elliot can set up a spot where he can leave a Wasteland in play and not crack it simply to guard against the Tabernacle. Somewhat normal counterplay out of the Hollowine deck.
To mention one interesting interaction, Pithing Needle can name any card, any chance of activated abilities that are not mana abilities. So you can feel free to name a land, but you won't shut down the mana thing. So for example, it can shut down Fetchlands. It can shut down Bazaar activation.
Yeah,
you can
definitely.
shut down Wasteland's ability to destroy other lands, but not the actual mana production. Leyland actually in play.
So Elliot decided to bring in the Leylines. I'm very curious what he removed from his deck to go for this strategy. But that's super interesting.
Yeah, and now we see Mox into Gravedigger's Cage, responds lose to life mental misstep. And thinking through his options, he just lets it go. If you had counter magic, would you have countered back? Is that a read you can take?
Yeah, so you're saying if Elliot had counter, would you always counter back to?
No, if
the other way
Stefan
around?
had a,
Oh, yeah.
if Stefan had a counter.
Got it. Yeah, I would do that for sure.
So basically, Elliot can assume there is no counter magic?
He can assume there's no Force of Will or Mental Misstep. There can still be Force of Negation, but I think you would sideboard that out against the Bazaar deck because the Bazaar deck is not doing anything you need to worry about on their own turn when it comes to Force of Negation. No non-creature, like super high impact cards, only creatures. So yeah, no Force of Will in Stefan's hand. That's pretty safe.
Maybe there is a marginal scenario where there is Force of Will, but there isn't another blue card. And then
Yeah, that's true.
Elliot plays off of the assumption there is no Force of Will, but there actually is, and Stefan might enable it soon enough.
That is true. So the good news is the Bazaar deck doesn't care too much about having, let's say, a hollow one Force of Will in a turn or two. That's not the end of the world. What this game is most likely going to be about is the Bazaar in combination with Master of Death and Squee just overpowering. Oh, this Wasteland could change things, though.
Okay, so there is Squee, there is Master of Death, a card I think of one of the best names in Magic that I've heard. I mean, how cool is that name? It's straight to the point, right?
It sure is. It sounds like an old card, actually, from the name.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we see another Bazaar, and we see double Squee Rootwaller, play it. Oh, and now Hollow One. So now this 20-turn clock turned into a 4-turn clock.
Yeah, so it is really showcasing the important skill of drawing 2 Bazaars of Baghdad against Wasteland. Then you're in a good spot with that deck because more often than not, after the first Wasteland from Stefan, you will just do nothing. You will take back your squeeze and pass the turn because Bazaar is the only way for you to have action. So this is just awesome timing to have 2 Bazaars in this situation.
Yeah, especially with that mental misstep turn 1. It just really nicely comes together. He's double checking the wording on the card. Will Stefan is fetching, and I can see Fatal Push in his library still.
Yeah, Fatal Push of meaningful creatures, it kills Vengevine if you have Revolt. So depending on your sideboard strategy, it could be worth it. But it doesn't kill Hollow One thanks to the 5 mana value.
Okay, so we got Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, we're probably killing off Rootwaller.
Yeah, a cool interaction here for Stefan is that now the Squee Bazaar of Baghdad plan becomes way worse for Iliad, thanks to Bowmasters.
Yeah. But
But
now, wow, force back.
see, this is the utility of Master of Death. It's a recurable Squee that pitches to Force of Will and Force of Negation in the mid game, which is just huge for that effect.
And it does work. So Elliot, double counter magic, double bazaar, and this might just ride him to victory.
Definitely
A
looks
very
like a great spot.
Yeah, very strong combination. Activate, draw, Fury, Serum, and Squee. So probably double Squee, he's the graveyard, in addition to, one redundant card, attack you for 5. 3 more attacks needed.
And even Force of Negation, was it alongside a Force of Will, or was it a Mindbreak trap to go with it?
Oh, I couldn't make out that, but yeah, it is possible that there is even more spice in the hand. Okay, Demonic. Is there
This
a
is a
counter
cool
back?
interaction. Yeah, it is a counter. So in this spot, Elliot doesn't know about we're going to see the Tabernacle. This is going to be a great one.
Okay, excellent. So this resolves the Tabernacle of Bendervale is going to enter the battlefield.
That's my best guess, yeah. Heads up play by Elliot, by the way, to counter the tutor. So oftentimes you'll have people letting tutors resolve to make your opponent spend more mana on what they're finding. But here, Elliot is thinking he just might go for a land, so I need to counter this tutor or it's going to be too late.
Yeah, and the Tabernacle, for those who don't know, give all creatures an ability that says at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay 1, which in practice means that both Rootwaller and Hollow One will need 1 mana to be paid every single upkeep to stay alive. And Elliot apparently and clearly has 0 mana available, so those will just die.
Yeah, that's going to make this game interesting. The fact that Elliot has still access to Bazaar and double Squee in the yard will make it so that he can actually rebuild within, let's say, 3 or 4 turns on average and rebuild some more pressure. So Stefan will need to do some good stuff in the meantime as well.
Okay, Elliot's checking his own hand. So I'm really curious if there is a wasteland to just complement this powerful draw. Okay, resolve the triggers. Take a draw. Yeah, and let's see how the situation develops. A pretty swingy game, I have to say.
Yeah, but Stefan is at a huge disadvantage here. If, let's say, Elliot didn't have any Squeeze or he didn't have Bazaar, but him having both of those tools available just makes Bazaar such a tool.
Yeah, so right now, we're just fishing for a wasteland, right? And just setting up the perfect hand long term.
Yeah, because the other way to try and win is to Vengevine, like haste damage your way out of this game, but that's going to take a lot of Root Wallers and Vengevines.
Oh! Wasteland on a non-tabernacle. Does it just screams, I've got more wastelands?
I think this is super interesting. I think Elliot recognizes that the power of Squee and Bazaar will get me out of this. I just want to make sure my opponent doesn't do anything stupidly
Meaningful, yeah.
powerful in time. Which is a very good play to make. I think 9 out of 10 players will just wasteland the Tabernacle and try and play from there.
Wow, but Elliot is that 1 in 10 playing. Oh, is that a huge punish for that genius line?
I'm not sure. So that would be the difference between having a 1/1 in play and giving your opponent an Underground Sea. So I still like Elliot's position better with this play.
Especially now.
Especially now, yeah. The Noxious Revival is just super strong at ensuring yourself against Wasteland.
And now you're drawing even more into the deck, so you're going to see more Noxious Revivals and more Bazaars the more you go, right? So it just gets better and better exponentially for you.
Yeah, now he binned 2 Squeeze and a Master of Death. So now the Bazaar is basically just tap to draw 2 cards every turn.
Okay, Fetchland, I think Misty sacrificed Underground Sea. And let's see how the situation develops. I'm just trying to peek at what's inside the deck still. I think I saw Time Twister there. Lorien's revealed. So would you say Time Twister is good now? In the form
Time
of
Twister
the...
would be definitely. I would say so. Okay, a Time Walk.
Getting rid of all
I'm
the
curious
squeeze from
what
the graveyard,
Stefan is
right?
getting to. Exactly, try and reset. Stefan, yeah, he's in a tough spot.
Yeah, in a tough spot and already down a game. And then Elliot potentially in prime position to take it down and potentially top 8 this tournament, but it's not over until it's over. Full grip for him.
Elliot also have to think a little bit about Orcish Bowmasters at this stage of the game.
It's so interesting that we are excited that Tabernacle is fetched out, swinging the game, but the advantage bar is firmly in the Elliot side ever since.
Yeah, definitely. And also just with him wastelanding the Underground Sea, he clearly had a plan like how to beat this card long term. And if he even had the Noxious, so your opponent couldn't even draw Wasteland to punish you, then I really like the play of wastelanding the Underground Sea. That was super strong.
Yeah, activating Bazaar again. So is there anything from Elliot's perspective that you want to double and triple protect yourself from? Like, what are you thinking about as Elliot?
Right now, I'm thinking about closing out this game in a somewhat timely manner. And I think he can also, this says a lot, right? He goes to clean up and discards a potential interactive spell, but he wants to assemble like his Force of Will, his Force of Vigors. So creatures, first priority. I guess Wasteland is the first priority, right? Because you need to get rid of the Tabernacle. But as the games, go ahead.
So what is the perfect 7 that you try to sculpt? Like, let's actually sculpt the perfect 7. So we start with Wasteland, and what else?
Yeah, so we knew he didn't have Wasteland, right? Then he would have played it. So I would guess his 7 is something like maybe double blue force, double blue card, Force of Vigor green card, and I'm not really sure about the last one.
Okay, and we see double force, 1 blue, Force of Vigor. So we're close to what you've just said. Okay, we're very close.
Fury and red card mixed in.
Yeah. That's 8 cards. We're cleaning something up. Fury goes to the graveyard. So we're holding up force.
Yeah, so he actually ends up with that exact hand, which makes a lot of sense. Triple 1 green force, 2 blue force, and
take Luris.
Yeah, Luris. Unfortunately, the basic island that Stefan drew as his 3rd mana source will not help him cast Luris, which is a bit unfortunate. I imagine the deck is running 1 or 2 islands and otherwise just Underground Seas, so that's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, but right now, Elliot has got the perfect hand as we have described, but it doesn't seem to actually lead anywhere as of this point, right? Because he's got all the protection, but he just keeps spinning his wheels.
Yeah, you can say that. But also we know he's going to hit the Wasteland at some point. So the question is and Stefan can't resolve anything in the meantime. So actually Urza's Saga would, while Elliot struggles to find Wasteland, Urza's Saga could be the draw that Stefan is looking for. Obviously, Force of Vigor has something to say about that, but on the surface, it looks like Urza's Saga would be a great draw.
Is there any threat of, let's say, the Wastelands? I think there are like 2 left. if they are in the bottom couple cards of the library, is there any risk of actually decking?
That's actually a very, very good question, and I would say, yeah, I can't really think of a way to. I mean, Noxious Revival only brings back, I guess. He can always he can even find Noxious Revival and bring back Wasteland. So I think he has too many outs for that to happen. The decking actually.
Okay, and discards Fury Master, and I think a Squee. Wasteland now gets deployed. And Stefan is just seems to be resigned by waiting until the actual conclusion of the game, while Elliot is trying to stitch something together, having seen half the library at least.
Yeah, that's true. Elliot doesn't look like someone who has all those tools available.
Oh my god. No, don't do this to him. No.
Wow. This is awesome. I really like this strategy. I think it makes for an interesting game and very well could be the right call because Stefan is not doing anything meaningful with an island in the Mox Emerald.
Wow.
And
it makes me think of a chess game where why would you win now if you know you win in 20 moves? So like might as well wait until these 20 moves happen, right? So
yeah,
slowly,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, clinching the victory because he knows the end game. Like we bet he knows it, right?
Does. Yeah. And now
Oh, the big reveal.
I think this will reveal a Noxious Revival. No Noxious yet. Okay. So he's just playing off of the inevitability that he'll find another Wasteland or another Noxious Revival, and he's trying to make sure he doesn't die in the meantime, which is super funny. Also, he didn't find any creatures to win the game with. I think that also impacted his decision. In case he had something like Hollow One or was able to get back Vengevine, I think he would have wastelanded the Tabernacle a long time ago.
So, am I wrong, or we have seen 0 Vengevines this particular game? Because I think we've seen 0, right?
Yeah, that's actually that's true. None in the yard even.
That's important because 4 Vengevines are in the list, and 4 times 4, that's 16. So we could actually have some hasty wins out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's also a way to beat Tabernacle, but yeah, it's going to be kind of hard. But I guess you get there eventually. Just double Bazaar, triple Squee. Very interesting game.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I did not expect that to happen, but yeah, fetch out an Underground Sea, the 3rd Underground Sea. There are 4 in this entire deck, plus double island, 1 island in play, so there are 2 more fetchable mana sources. But yeah, what a game that is. Activate, draw 3. Stefan wished he was on MTGO with a chess clock.
Elliot has definitely made a lot of small game decisions. Yeah.
Okay, Strip Mine in play. So let's see if he follows through. Okay, Stefan already touching his Underground Sea.
Yeah, that's the dream for Stefan, that he gets to run Elliot out of Strip Mine Wasteland. But so it could be time.
So if you add this up, Stefan has got a total of 6 mana producing lands, and Elliot has a total of 5 land destructing lands. But he has Noxious Revivals that lets him reuse them, right? So he can actually factually run Stefan out of any lands.
There's something to be said about like Urza's Saga and artifact mana, but in theory, you can run your opponent out of blue duels. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Strip Mine the Tabernacle. Okay, that's a red light immediately. Alarm bells going off. And Stefan looking at a fatal push in his hand.
Also a cool line from Elliot here. He makes sure to kill the Tabernacle on Stefan's end step because the land is legendary. So if you kill it right away on your own turn, you give your opponent the chance to play a second copy, which we know that Stefan doesn't have, but Elliot doesn't.
Yeah, Elliot is in the zone. Like, it's really impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's good. double squee, plus 1 Root Waller. Looking at the hand, double activation. Stefan nods. Yep. Okay. Ditching Vengevine and Squee. Elliot at 6 life. That shouldn't be much of an issue. Hollow One, trigger Vengevine, bash you for 5?
Yeah, one Root Waller that stayed for a turn, and then the hasty Vengevine.
Okay, so now we've turned over from double bazaring into an actual 2-turn clock. So yeah, Stefan says, yep. Yeah, I think it was double Fatal Push in hand, actually. Wow. What a match that was. I mean, I expected this to be very short, crisp, fast, but it turned out to be one of the most nuanced games that we've seen, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. This is just a perfect showcasing of Bazaar doesn't have to be this like super fast one-trick pony. You can actually play like long grindy games with the best of them, and even have 3 wastelands at your disposal. But the first 2 ones, you disrupt your opponent's mana, just not caring about the Tabernacle because you have the end game locked up with the old combination of Bazaar Baghdad and Squee.
Yeah, so in general, would you say it is a good matchup for Bazaar, or it just happened to roll out this way?
I would say these Lurrus decks, they don't offer like too many super broken, unfair angles, and the less there is of that, the more you like to be the Bazaar player. So in general, it's good news when a deck like Dimir Lurrus is on top of the standings.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that concludes this wild round of 5-head 300 IQ plays. I'm really happy I covered this round, and thank you very much for guiding us through this match, which would be very difficult otherwise. And thank you for having you in the booth today. Anything you'd like to say to our viewers today?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to Anurag for whatever he's doing, like for coverage. It's awesome. Thanks to Ultimate Guard. And yeah, I love Vintage, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the stream with Skura and Martin.
Yeah, thanks you very much for joining. Thanks to the chat for being with us. And don't go anywhere because we will be back soon for last round 7 of Vintage Today. See ya.